Patience. So, good morning, everybody. My name is Paul Dwyer, President of the ICTTF, and you're all very welcome here today to the second Cyber Threat Summit. This year we have a European perspective. We also have three distinct themes, and we'll go through those. So I won't, in the interest of making up some lost time and so on, I won't dwell on some of the background and profiles and things like that. As Richard said, most of you will be aware of my profile and my involvement in cyber security. One quick thing.
I think, did he bend the rules a little bit? Yeah, but we see cheating going on all the time in games. Players dive in. When I'm asked about it, I say, yeah, the game is full of it.
But should it be stopped, the cheating?
Yeah, of course. Nobody wants to cheat. Whose phone is that? That's the second time it's gone off.
Well, that's my phone, sorry.
Why don't you turn it off? No, that's the second time it's gone off. Why don't you put it on silent?
No, it's not the same.
Well, why don't you turn it off?
Well, I'll turn it off in a minute.
You're just going to let it ring?
Well, I thought I'd let it ring out.
All right, that's good manners.
So, you get the point, okay? All the speakers here today put in a huge amount of work in putting their presentations together, so just for in relation to respect and so on for their time while they're up here. So, a little bit around the logistics today. This is the main auditorium, also known as the Tara Suite, and the main plenary discussions will go on here. As speakers switch over, we're fairly relaxed here on the way things go. But as speakers, there is comfort breaks, as you see in the schedule. But as speakers switch over, by all means, if you want to go down to the technology showcase, which is another room, there's an agenda downstairs on that where sponsors will sell to you. We are not here in this room to sell to anybody. It's to educate people, to tell you some enlightening things, some information you might not be aware of. It is not sales pitches in this room. But to switch gear, go down to the technology showcase if you're interested in a solution maybe from Aircom and log management, Solera Networks, to be that you're interested in speaking to, they will have their set times down there and you can go and engage with those. There's also the huddle room, which is the Marconi suite. The huddle room is where you can have a private consultation with any of the sponsors. So just if you want to speak at something privately, have a private consultation, a workshop, there's a room available to go in and do that as well. So just reach out to sponsors and they will book and organize the room for you. And of course the exhibition stands. Without the sponsors, this event would not happen. It's as simple as that. Please by all means go down, visit the exhibition stands, engage with the sponsors. We have cherry-picked the sponsors. We have interesting people here, interesting products, whether it's cyber insurance, whether it's Solera Networks, PBX Wall, Aircom, Sophos, you name it, they're all down there, but they've all got something interesting to speak about down there. And forgive me if I've missed out some of the names down there. I will get you later on during the day. Okay, so a couple of other logistics. You'll see the cameras here. We are being broadcast live on the internet at the moment on a TV station, icttf.tv, compliments of Air TV and Magnet. Thank you very much for that, to the guys there. We also have photographers, videographers and so on there. But also interesting, we have Lance, a very talented cartoonist artist, who will be creating cartoon summaries of each of the presentations. They will be available downstairs in the exhibition hall at the comfort break, so you can come down and see in picture format, cartoon format, what the hell we were talking about, right? So hopefully they'll be fairly complimentary, but extremely talented guy and well worth looking at that stuff when you go down there. And another reason, of course, to go down to the exhibition area. Okay, so a little bit about ICTTF, because normally in my modest way, I always just blur over this really quickly about the ICTTF. The ICTTF is the International Cyber Threat Task Force. It's a not-for-profit organization which I founded because I recognized all the bad guys work as a network. They share ideas, they collaborate, they train each other, they share tools, script, context, connections, you name it, that's how they work. And we decided to create the antithesis of that, if you like, and we decided to create a positive social network group for people interested in defeating all types of cyber threats. It now has over 2,500 members. We've had over 10 million hits to the website this year alone, and there's lots of different functionality over there. It will be free. It's always going to be free. It is there as a service to people to help connect, to learn at all levels. So from the very basics to the starts, it's all there to help people go through that. Just to give you how real this is, I mean, obviously we are here, this is the kinetic version of the virtual community that I founded with the ICTTF, and we have these summits and we have these meetings going with this. But this is actually a map a typical user map in a day across the world of people on the site, using it all around the world. These guys have founded the local Indonesian chapter, and you'll see from their shirts there, they have the ICTTF logo and so on like that. So we have local chapters starting off, so it's a very positive thing, and it's almost becoming viral now in a very good way. So now on to the presentations. And it's my job here this morning. I will have some set presentations tomorrow. But really what I want to do is I want to set the tone. I want to set the context, the scene. I want you to understand, without stealing the limelight or anyone's thunder, but just some of the topics we're going to cover. So I'm just going to sort of place us in that area. So we've got social media, we've got mobile computing and smartphone security, and we've got cloud computing. The reason we picked those three themes is because they are the most important catalysts, if you like, for businesses these days. These are the things that are game changers. They can make a massive difference to businesses. You're either embracing social media, you're transitioning to the cloud, you're moving your business model into the cloud, or you're dealing with the growth around mobility. And some of the statistics on that we touch upon are absolutely mind-boggling. Okay, so day one. I'm just going to quickly go through the agenda so we get a flavour for this. We have Andy O'Kelly from Eircom. Eircom, fascinating business, and obviously we hear lots of different things about Eircom, but I believe they're a business that are rebuilding their DNA of the entire business, and I know I have first-hand experience of some of the solutions they're bringing to the market, including their SIM system. Which will be downstairs, and you talk to James McLaughlin, talk to Andy, talk to any of the guys down there, and they will talk you through exactly the difference in that and everything else. But it's certainly something well worth a look and worth engaging with them. And they also have some speaking slots in the technology showcase, and you can go in, you can meet Andy, and you can talk to these guys on a very real level. We'll have the Data Protection Commissioner. He'll arrive shortly if he hasn't got held up on a train or something on the way here. We'll have Cathal McDade going through the insights of mobile security, predicting the future, because this is all about growth around mobile security, around everything is moving from the PC-based stuff and everything else like that over onto mobile, and we'll touch upon those points. The next one's very interesting to me because there's something that gets me excited. It's PBX Wall. It's a firewall for PBX phone systems. Phone hacking is something that's been around a long time, and it's great to see an Indigenous Irish company like PBX Wall invent what I see is a world-leading solution, and it's been brought to the market, and they're using this as their showcase to tell people about the capabilities of that product, what it can do, and I can tell you it's certainly something very exciting and well worth looking into. We will then have we'll have a question and answer session then. We will then have Lorraine from Persona Marketing, and a lot of people have said to me, marketing person, talking at a cybersecurity conference. Perception is reality, and it's very important to understand how to market your way sometimes out of incidents and how to handle those. And Lorraine is very expert in this area and will be able to enlighten to you with some of the benefits, tips, tricks, that sort of stuff around. And again, Lorraine will be around to handle any questions and answers over the next couple of days. We then, and forgive me, I hope I pronounced the name right, Perluigi. I've got it right. Great. I knew I practiced it. He's an ICTTF member from Italy who's come over here. One of the world's leading security experts, in my opinion. He's somebody I watch. He's somebody I listen to. Somebody I see as a peer in the world that has his finger on the pulse of what's happening in cybersecurity. And I'm like welcome here today, and thank you very much for taking the time and effort to come over. We'll then hear from David Dwyer, a data compliance expert. Yes, Dwyer, he is related. But he'll speak briefly about the value of personally identifiable information. Why do criminals want your information? What's it worth? How do they sell it? We will find out from David, an expert on information security management systems and certification also. We will then hear from Matthew from VigiTrust. Matthew, a lot of you would know from VigiTrust and speaking on areas such as PCI compliance, but VigiTrust is much more than PCI compliance. VigiTrust is an information security company, one of the best companies in Ireland at providing these types of services. So by all means, reach out to Matthew on all of these areas. And today he'll speak around credit card fraud and areas like that as well. Very interesting then, we'll have a conversation about humans, because we all know this isn't all about technology. This is about the human factor as well. So we'll hear from Mark Johnson in relation to the human side of things and the weaknesses there. Last but certainly not least, one of my favorite speakers is Michael Baum. This guy's walked the walk as CRO of AIB, an advisor around risk, cybersecurity and so on like that. Somebody that I look up to, and as somebody that actually knows what the hell is really going on out there. So he's hanging around. Michael's presentation is always one of the best, and hence we've put Michael in that slot so that he can spread his knowledge and his expertise to you. But Michael is here today and will be around all day long as well, and he works with Risk Management International as well as one of the organizations he works closely with, who are the leaders in a lot of this space as well. We'll finish up with a panel discussion. Okay, forgive my voice, by the way, I'm just struggling a little bit with the flu, so you should feel sorry for me to a certain degree. So day 2, very quickly, on day 2, we will have Richard Anderson himself speaking about cyber geeks, cyber threats, a culture for all. Richard's a talented speaker and it'll be very interesting subject matter. Then I'm going to go a little bit left field, and I'm going to talk about Anonymous. And this is an interesting area because people think of hackers as being bad, and I have a slightly different view in relation to certain hackers and what we should be doing with them as opposed to locking them up. So a bit controversial, but we'll put that subject out. That's just before Bill Lau. Bill Lau is a very successful philanthropist and an entrepreneur, and he will be speaking about Coder Dojo and how there's opportunities for kids in the digital world. So a very important presentation from Bill. That'll be followed by Dr. Horacio González Valdez, who is the head of the Cloud Competency Centre. So the National College of Ireland has opened up a cloud competency centre, so we're going to be world leaders around this, and Dr. Horacio will be here to speak about that and what they're doing on that side of things. So then we lead on to breaches happen. Solera Networks. A lot of you may not be familiar with the name, certainly around Ireland at the moment within the domestic market here, but there's somebody that I'm very well aware of, and I'm well aware that the technology is outstanding, well worth a look at. Again, as I say, all of the sponsors exhibitors here are cherry-picked as being the best of the best. So you'll hear from James in relation to breaches happen and how to deal with it and so on. Then we'll go on to Mark Kellett from Magnet Networks, who will talk about, I think that the actual title of the presentation slightly changed now. It's the Trojan JCB. So he will talk about that sort of physicality side of things. But Magnet Networks is a very important part of the infrastructure around the internet in Ireland and their links with small to medium business especially. We'll then hear from Noel Davison, who's a social media expert. He will talk about how you manage different personas, how we've all ended up with these different personas online. You know, there's Paul Dwyer, there's Paul C. Dwyer, there's the guy, but then there's the professional persona, all those different things, and how you manage the risks around that and protect yourself online. Always interesting to hear from Noel, and he's a speaker that's in high demand because he's so good. After lunch, we'll hear from Dr. James Lyne. Dr. James Lyne is, I think I recently tweeted, if Carlsberg did security speakers, they would do James Lyne, probably the best in the world. He is outstanding, he's brilliant, very entertaining, very knowledgeable, and Sophos are here today downstairs. They have a stand as well, and James will be around tomorrow to meet with people himself. But you can meet with Dermot Hayden downstairs, and he's glad to tell you about their solutions and so on. We will have cyber insurance, plugging the gap, from Frederick Motzfeldt from Marsh. And as I mentioned, we also have Charters downstairs who will talk about their insurance products downstairs. They're not speaking today, but certainly Frederick will outline how you can plug the gap using insurance and the concept of where that value comes in. Why can't Johnny be good? Chuck Giorgio, a friend of mine, colleague, somebody who works in NATO also as an advisor, somebody who's worked in law enforcement around the world, and has come over from the States to present one of the closing speeches. Then that will be followed by David Feenan and Richie Bowden from the Cloud Arena. The Cloud Arena is a not-for-profit group promoting the cloud generally within Ireland, everywhere else, and the technology behind that. I will let them explain what they're about, and they will. It's very, very interesting pitch they have. And finally, I will speak on Rocky Balboa and the business lessons that we can have from Rocky Balboa. And it's a speech that will either go down like a lead balloon, or you'll all think it's great. So I'm hoping it's going to be the latter and you'll think it's good. But really it's going to be a speech to sum up the topics we've gone through and see how we can absolutely embrace the opportunities that these things are. You know, security and cyber threats, it isn't about scaring the bejesus out of people for 2 days here, let's be honest. This is about just acknowledging risks, acknowledging threats, how to deal with them, where are the opportunities, where do the opportunities lie, how do we embrace this from a business perspective, and how do we go from there? Okay, so I'm going to change gear slightly. I am going to flick over some of the slides just in the interest of time, but I want to just set the scene around some of the cyber threats. This conference, these 2 days of exhibition, stands, talkers, hundreds of years of experience of these talkers that are going to be on, isn't about cyber crime. It isn't about cyber espionage. It's not about cyber warfare. It's about all of these things. If we think of the word cyber like computer, it's the word on front of all of these different types of risks and threats. It's old scams being done in a new way and so on. So the way I see it is like a Venn diagram. You have cyber crime, cyber warfare, you've got cyber terrorism, and they all overlap each other. And as you understand this subject more and as you delve deeper, there is no hard and fast lines between this stuff. Terrorists work with criminals. Criminals work with hacktivists. Hacktivists work with industrial spies. They all work together, they all collaborate together, and there is this overlap. And there's another element which we refer to as cyber scum, and I think we can all guess what that element is, but it's never a nice thing to bring up, but it is something to be aware of, especially in relation to the laws and so on like that. So what is cybercrime? Cybercrime is any crime that involves the internet or a computer, basically. Recently I was speaking to Paul Gillen, the head of the Computer Crime Investigation Unit of the Garda Síochána, and he said, well, what crime isn't a cybercrime these days? Because every crime more or less involves a phone. Phones these days are pretty much computers, so you lawful interception requests, blah, 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 everything else like that. So there is a cyber aspect to most crimes these days, whether it's pinpointing the position, the location of somebody, whether it's finding a record or a log of where they've been or whatever. There's always going to be a cyber element these days. Cyber warfare. This is a serious business. The US, in 2010, the Pentagon set up Cybercom. They recognized that we now have a number of different fronts for warfare. We have land, sea, air, space, and now cyberspace. So they set up a whole unit around that with a 4-star general to command that unit. But when you look deeper into cyber warfare, you see where conscription has come in, where certain countries now conscripting hackers into the army because they see they have to defend themselves. They have to be able to use offensive techniques as well to find out what's going on. And we'll touch upon some of those things as we go through. Closer to home, the UK, they put a budget of 650 million together just to join up all the stuff they already had together to deal with cyber warfare. We have the cyber scum element, and something that always amazes me and is the statistics from this. Over 1,000 people in 30 days, and 697 were spotted 1 to 2 times, were downloading categorized child indecent imagery. So that's not something that, you know, the barely this or the barely that or whatever. This is the categorized stuff on MD5 hashes, categorized by Interpol, that this is the stuff, and that was on the Irish internet. So, and what's the most shocking thing in that program was a primetime documentary, and at the very end of it, in the credits it came up, and it listed all the villages around Ireland, and up came Malahide and 26 people. And that makes you think, and you go, I'm living beside these people that are downloading this stuff, you know? So it's, so there's an element there, and I think we're all well aware, the sort of audience we have here are all going to be well aware of the types of threats we're talking about, everything from DDoS attacks, viruses, malware, cyberstalking, fraud, and so on. The recent statistics from the UK would say that cyber threats cost at least 27 billion. We don't have accurate numbers on Ireland, unfortunately, because I think it would help people focus on this problem, focus on this issue, and understand what's going on. 1,000 sterling a second is what it's costing the British Exchange. Another statistic I heard recently was 15% of GDP worldwide is organised crime, and a huge portion of that is now cybercrime. It has surpassed drug trafficking as the #1 crime to do because, guess what? It's easy. Right, and the chances of getting caught, as opposed to getting your head blown off or a condom full of heroin exploding in your stomach, is pretty low. So it's a crime that people are being enticed into. It's easier to get into, and they're following through. Okay, so what are the economic drivers that are driving this, or the drivers that they're doing it? Well, technology, the internet. The recession is a big factor here, because what they're able to do now is they're seeing they can use that human factor, and they can turn people. So they can entice them much easier and say, you know, 20,000 euro for a spreadsheet or whatever it happens to be, and get them to send out the information and so on. So it's much easier to turn them to the dark side, if you like. It is easy to get involved, and there's another element, which is they want to be part of something. Right? We've seen this with Lulsec, we've seen this with Anonymous, we've seen this with these groups. They actually want to feel part of a gang, part of a group. They want to mean something, and we'll touch upon that over the days as well. hacktivism, and this is being part of something. We will see that these groups will try and entice people in for a cause. But when I go through this tomorrow in my presentation, you'll see that there isn't a common thread in any of this. It's all quite different. They could make you the target tomorrow, or Church of Scientology, Tom Cruise one day, Catholic Church the next day, MasterCard the next day. Who knows? There isn't a common theme. But it's the whole thing of being part of something. And also we'll see how mobile has come in on that, where they're actually using mobile-based technology. They're now creating the attack tools that people can put down on their smartphones and attack from the smartphones. But the knock-on effect of that is that the normal Joe Soap who thinks, oh, I'm going to be part of something and yeah, protest against this, and they put it on their phone. They're being arrested now, 18 months later after these attacks, because they're not aware that those apps are on their phone, on their workstations, their laptops and so on, and they're still targeting particular sites like the FBI site and so on like that. The malicious tool evolution, this is the development of a whole part of an industry called crimeware. This is where you can buy software products in criminal supermarkets online that will help you perpetrate crimes. So you don't need to be super geek. You don't need to be the guy in the toga, the sandals, the Smarties, the Coke, the pizza, all that. Those days are gone. These guys are entrepreneurs, they're opportunists. They're saying, right, I'll get the tool, I'll buy a keylogger, I'll log the keyboard, I'll get the details I need, and then they're following through in attacks. So we're seeing that whole area. We're also, and we'll touch upon this tomorrow, how these guys who love the challenge of hacking are being seduced, manipulated, groomed by criminal networks and indeed terrorists. And we'll go through some of those details as well. So what are the cyber targets in 2012? Well, you look at a pie chart like that and you go, well, what the hell, we've got all these sectors. Pretty much, look, it's an even spread, more or less, right across the different sectors. But what's interesting to me is the motivations behind attacks. We're seeing a growing amount, 14%, are hacktivist. You know, it's not about the money. And if they're not after money, that's a completely different motivational factor, because then you go, why? Well, they're just going to do this for ideological reasons, for political reasons, because they don't like the fact you've got a particular client or that you're doing a particular business in a certain region or whatever happens to be. And then you could become an attack. You could become in the crosshairs of these guys. Okay. We'll touch upon the legal aspects. We often reference the European Convention on Cybercrime, and recently I spoke a couple of weeks ago in the Law Society, and we talked about this whole subject of privacy, and we talked about, you know, how important it is to get these laws, and the laws have to catch up on what's going on and everything. But the reality is we need an even playing field, and the closest thing we have to that is the Euro Convention on Cybercrime, which categorizes different types of crime. It's been signed and ratified by the US, so it's not just a European thing. It's been signed and ratified by the UK, but not Ireland, interestingly. And some people would say, well, look, if Russia and China aren't involved, what's the point? Because they're the ones causing a lot of the problems, you know? So if they're not going to play by these rules, how can the rest of us play by them? Okay, interesting thing that I draw reference to in the European Convention on Cybercrime is ensure that a legal person can be held liable where the lack of supervision or control by a natural person has made possible the commission of a criminal offence established in accordance with the convention. In other words, if you didn't do everything you could have to stop your systems being used to perpetrate a crime, it's your fault. Right? So, as a director of a company. And we have seen cases of that. Google. Right? And you'll see where the directors of Google in Italy were taken off in handcuffs because certain things around content on their sites, where there was a video of bullying an autistic child and things like this, and people will get arrested over those types of things. So we're seeing more, and as the Data Protection Commission comes online, we'll find out about the eye-watering fines that are on their way. 1% of global turnover. Forget about data protection being something that you pay lip service to, let's just be honest about it, and small fines maybe in this, and an under-resourced department trying to control some of the biggest entities, Facebook, Google, Twitter, blah, 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 in the world are all based here in Ireland. And in fairness to the Data Protection Commission, with very limited resources, based in a small office over a centre in Portarlington, it's just never, you know, needs more resources to do those sort of things. And we'll see how that's going to change the game. The UK has responded, and what I find about, I've mentioned about the budget of 650 million, but one of the things that's very interesting on this, from my side, is the Baroness Neville-Jones, who was the previous security minister in the UK, very straight-talking lady, says it as it is, excellent. She turned around and she said, look, you're on your own. Forget about going to law enforcement when things go wrong, because you need to treat this like terrorism. You need to rely on the private sector and to find ways to disrupt this. You need to disrupt the techniques, disrupt the gangs, find out more about them, have intel, so on that. But you don't pick up the phone and contact your local Garda station and say, I think I've been hacked. Of course, that's what you're meant to do, but in reality, it's never going to actually work out. Critical national infrastructure, we're going to talk about cyber warfare. We're going to mention areas, for example, some of the work I do with NATO and Chuck and so on like that. And we touch upon some of these areas because dropping bombs and missiles on countries to control them is a thing of the past. We're going to look at that because it's about siege warfare now. If you can turn off the electricity, if you can turn off the water, you can control a country. You don't need to blow things up. So we've seen this through Stuxnet, we've seen this through SCADA-based system attacks, all those sort of things, so we'll touch upon those. This is interesting. This is something I can share, and only recently I could share this because some of this information became public. Endgame systems. And this is something we can say thank you very much to Anonymous for, right? Anonymous hacked a security consultant who was basically upping themselves about that they knew who Anonymous were. Anonymous attacked them, leaked all the information. And in those emails that came out was very interesting information about a company called Endgame Systems. Now, Endgame Systems were comprised, they called themselves a cloud-based malware and botnet detection service. All their founders were ex-IBM and CIA, and in February 2011, they partnered with IBM and HP. What the truth was, came from their emails, that they were actually providing offensive and defensive vulnerability research. Their promise was to provide our customers with the highest quality offensive CNE, that's computer network attack, computer network exploitation software in the world. Cyber arms, weapons is what they were creating. Tools to attack systems is what they were selling. And I've seen some of their systems. They actually look like a game when you go into them, the graphics and everything else like that. And you can get packs for the Middle East and packs for Western Europe and all these sort of things. And this is their price list. They became brokers for zero-day exploits. Within their demo, I say you can see parliament buildings, corporations, what systems are running, how you could attack them. The target packs cost about $2 million. You could subscribe to the zero-day exploit service, 25 of them a year for $2.5 million. Or you get a database of hundreds of millions of infected systems. In other words, your botnet army that you could call up and use to attack these systems. So $6 million got you into the cyber terrorism game or the cyber warfare game. And you go, wow, that's crazy, mad. Well, guess what? There's copycat firms, Appen Technologies in India. There's loads of them now have all set up, started doing this stuff. And they're selling it to the highest bidder. If you can afford the technology, it's there. Buying and selling information. We will talk about this underground economy, how they have their own stock exchanges, how they buy and sell information between each other, how it's broken up between distributors, wholesalers, retailers, all that within the game. It became a business from basically back in Ukraine about 10 years or so ago. A number of sites were set up. You had things like Carter Planet, for example, this one here that I'm showing. And these are the guys who literally turned it into a business. And we'll just show you an example of one of their advertisements. That's actually one of just their flash advertisements trying to entice people into their website. These are the guys that turned it into a business. You know, started off in Odessa in Ukraine, and they had an interesting challenge. You know, it was axiomatic that dealing with criminals, you couldn't really trust each other online. So they used the escrow system. And they started dealing between each other and taking a commission between and trusting. So if I had credit card details to sell, I would go to Carter Planet. The agent there, they call themselves the family, but the agent there would take the information and they would validate that it was good stuff and it was okay to be sold on, and they would take a commission in between. And that started off a whole business model. And it's interesting because I remember back in the time when Amazon went public and everybody was going, whoa, wow, this mad, huge, 80 billion or whatever, 80 million, whatever it was at the time, crazy money, whatever. One list of credit cards had that amount of value that was sold on Carter Planet around the same time, had the same value. So if you think, you know, $5,000 credit, $2,000 credit, whatever, when you added it all up, it had the same value as Amazon at that time, which is just crazy to think that that was that big. There's different models. They use money mules. I will flick over this quite quickly because in the interest of time, but there's different, it's important to understand that there's different actors involved. Nobody does the whole crime. Right? Some people are legitimate people in the chain of the crime. They may be money mules that have been duped into being money mules, and they may take online jobs. You often see these signs around the place saying, earn extra cash from home, work part-time job, overseas agent, all that stuff. pretty much all of those are ruses to get you involved into laundering cash or into being a money mule. And what they'll do is they'll hire you even for 3-6 months at a time, and then they'll turn around and say, oh, we need to transfer 10,000 to your account, and we need you to transfer 7,000 out. You've just taken 10,000 of stolen cash into an account and sent 7,000 out of your account. You're a money mule. You're a victim. A lot of students fall for this, if you believe they're falling for it, but a lot of students fall for it at the end of the day. I'll flick over this quite quickly. We'll bring this up to give you an idea of how they all work together. So, if we look here, we've got the bad guy, okay? So this is the guy that decides he wants to do a crime, okay? And he wants to get something. He has to use a supplier, and that supplier will have a number of agents. Some of those agents may create phishing websites, they may have lists of spam emails, they may have all sorts of different things, but there'll be different people at different sides of the crime that they will link to. They'll have a target, which may be a financial institution. Within there then is the victim. It may be your personal details, your bank account, whatever it happens to be. They'll also go down to a carding forum. That's the wholesaler, where that's a stock exchange where they buy and sell all this sort of information, these tools, everything else like that. They'll go down there, and in there will be carders. They're the retailers. They're the guys that say, right, I have 10,000 credit card details. You want 100 based in Ireland because you want to clone them and use them in the Irish marketplace. I'll sell you 100 because I've just bought a batch of 1,000. So they work within that model. They will then do, as I say, old type scams, but in a new type way. So what they'll do is they'll go off and they'll get buy electronic goods, get them to a drop zone, sell them on for cash, whatever it happens to be on that side. Okay, so just want to give you a quick update on the price lists. This is a slide that I was using not too long ago, and you can see the price list is all pretty high numbers. You know, $50 for the credit card number if you had the track and everything else like that. But like everything on the stock exchange and in the commercial world, it's about supply and demand. So if I bring you to the latest price list, this is the price list at the moment in the UK if you want to buy UK bank account details. It's now 10 pence for the credit card number if you're selling them in bulk. It's 20% if you can guarantee that it hasn't been reported yet. 40 pence for UK versus US cards, an extra £1 if you have the verification details, extra 50 pence for selected city, a few hundred pounds for an active bank account with a balance under 10, and average price £64 per record. So when someone loses a laptop and tells you 400 quid for the laptop, and that laptop may have had 30,000 customers' details or credit card details, average price £64 per record, that's a big loss. Okay, we go on to the threats. I mean, a lot of this stuff now we think is mundane, viruses, phishing, and all those things. But as I say, and we'll hear from Cathal later on from Adaptive Mobile, and he will go into this in much more detail than I'm going to now, and where all this technology is moving. So we have it moving towards smishing, SMS version of it. But really the purpose of these few slides here is really to show you that this stuff isn't ad hoc stuff. It's not a guy who decides, I'm going to set up an AIB website tomorrow, and I'm going to try and direct people over and do it that way. They have project plans. These are just the targets. These are the phishing host countries. This is a life cycle of a phishing project. They have Gantt charts on these things. You know, they use project management models as they go through. It's quite complex stuff. So where is it all going? Well, it's all going. It's all growing. I mean, if we look at the growth around mobile, monthly traffic hit 1,000 petabytes by 2013. There'll be more internet devices than people by 2016. So guess what? All the bad guys in the research and development departments, and I'm not saying that in a flippant way, these guys are set up as businesses. They make a lot of money, and they have research and development departments. Everything is going mobile, and that's what they're moving stuff. And we've seen this with recent variations of the viruses. If we think of the amount of apps, 30 million apps last year went out. What sort of security testing has been done on that? I don't know whether anybody's been down the path of developing an app, but I have been recently, and I'm amazed at how little security controls is done around the code before it's actually put into a marketplace. And then people download it and they don't actually know what that does on their phone. Results of recent security testing show that 5% requested the user permission to make a call without the user knowing. 1 in 20 apps. 3% could send a text message. Some of them could brick your mobile device. So if they decided to, they could push out a command to it to make your phone useless. Nearly 400 could read the authentication details from other apps on your phone. So your username and password from your other apps. So this is big season. This is where all the development time has gone around these guys. I will let Cathal, who's much more adapted to this area around Adaptive Mobile, fantastic company who provide technology for telcos in relation to being able to deal with this and protect the consumer. And with that in mind, just go quickly through the social media side, because all the criminals are using the social media network to house and sell their apps. The reality is the criminals go where people go. So they're going to be on social media selling the tools, marketing, enticing people, scamming people, and so on like that. But I just want to show you, this slide is one of my final slides here to make it for time. This path here, okay, across, that's everybody that's involved in the chain of you using an app on your phone, right? So you have the content providers, the application provider, the search providers, advertising devices, OS, network operators. Security's only as good as the weakest link. Boom, knew I'd get that in. It's only as good as the weakest link, right? So if one of these guys isn't doing their job properly, you may have something that's not secure running on your mobile phone, or essentially on your computer that you carry around in your hand. The PC side of things moving, well, we've seen recent cases of this with, a lot of you may be familiar, especially in the financial service sector, with things like Zeus. We now see Zitmo, Zeus in the mobile version of it. We've seen it around anonymous attacks with low orbit ion cannon, an attack tool used. Now we have a mobile version for mobile phones. So, to sum up, what these 2 days are about isn't about scaring you, telling you all statistics and blah, blah, blah. It's about looking at this and saying, well, okay, this stuff is real. These are the things happening. How are we going to deal with it? Is law enforcement the answer? Is it proactive cyber defense? Is it foreknowledge? Is it attacking back? Is it that side of things? What do we need to do? Do we need to reach out to hackers? Do we need to find out what their issues are around hacktivism, all those sort of things? So that's what we're going to explore over the next couple of days, embracing those 3 themes as we go through it. And I will just finish up now, hand you over to Andy O'Kelly, and hope we can make up some time. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you.